Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF Everything in That Shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF Everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. We
Mhm.
are continuing the Snyderverse movies, and it is Suicide Squad. Obviously,
Mhm.
not the Suicide Squad. It's the David Ayer, or what was made of David Ayer's footage of Suicide Squad.
Yes. The chopped up, blended up this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having revisited, I still like it better than both of the Justice League movies. I
Mhm.
just think that the Joker stuff, it kind of slows things down, and
Really
not
does.
much you can do about that. It's just
Yeah. It's just there's well the pacing of this movie, and we're obviously going to talk about the pacing, is just so inconsistent. Like the Joker stuff always slows it down,
yeah,
but then it's, to me, I'm like, it's always that beginning dinner scene with, you know,
oh, with
Viola,
Amanda Waller.
with Amanda Waller, Viola Davis, putting up a great performance, but still, it's just the monotony of the scene of like going through everything, where like I'm only thinking about Guardians of the Galaxy does it so much more successfully, where it's like one scene and it's over with, versus that dinner scene. I'm like, oh my god, we're still going on with this. This is like everyone's got their own scene, and like introduction it just really is a slow start, and then it's like once it starts get going again, it slows down, and then it does that all the time, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, I definitely disagree. I think the dinner scene is really strong because
Really?
I think that it's exact. I think the problem with the movie is the whole conceit doesn't make sense.
Mm.
That anyone would agree to these people being able to save the world. Like, I don't think that makes sense. But sitting through that, I'm like, whatever. Like, this is the movie's logic. I know the rules. Like, we've just finished talking about Loki. Like, I
Mm.
get what the like posts are. Like, I understand the parameters
Mm.
of what are going on, and I see that like I there's room for me to be like, maybe this is just Amanda Waller selling people a bill of like goods that she's never gonna actually like pay off. Like,
Right.
maybe this is just, I just want to control these people, and I don't have to actually believe that she legitimately thinks these people will stop a Superman from saving the world. But at
Mhm.
least I see the like that, and then I get to see, for the most part, the characters at their coolest. Like, I can actually be like, oh, sick, like this is a great a Deadshot like assassination, and then Deadshot versus Batman, and I get to see a very cool, like, I forgot that I was going to see the Flash again, like
Right.
when you see Captain Boomerang, like all that stuff, and then you can see their stats. I like the like intro stuff. I think it's a very stylized movie, but I think that that sets the intention. And
Mhm.
I mean, you could just not be on board. Doesn't I don't think this makes the movie good, but it's just like, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand how to interact with this movie based
Yeah.
on this dinner scene.
The stylized, and you're absolutely right. It sets the tone for the entire movie, and that makes me appreciate slightly more. But even then, I'm just like it that, and it's like the back and forth. You're right. I get to see everyone at its coolest, but it's one of those things where I wish I would have seen seen develop through the movie, as opposed to just like, here's this guy, and here's this guy, and here's this guy, and here's this guy. Because I'm like, oh, we're pitching it to David Arbor, and then you realize, oh, he's not the guy making the decision. She's pitching it to him so that he can give her clout to pitching it to the United States, and
Mm-hmm.
then to do that. And I'm like, oh my god, we got to double back on that. That's what I mean. I'm like, if we're establishing this scene as strong. I'm like, okay, good. But then later on, when they have to repitch the
Oh
idea
yeah,
of the
but I see
Suicide
that as a
Squad,
fault with the repitches, not the initial thing.
fair enough. But
Like
I'm just
that's
like,
you said you don't like that scene. Does that mean
no,
you like the other times they do it?
no, I still don't like the other times they do it. But this
Okay,
scene
yeah,
is just it
that's
drags
what I was
on
getting
and
at.
on and on and on, and I'm like, oh my god! I just wish
I really
we
don't
could
feel it's that long.
propel. I really wish it was just the strength of her and David Harbour together, and it was a faster scene. I really wish it was. That is one of the biggest things
Hmm.
about this movie.
I think the only thing that slows it down for me is the Joker stuff because I'm just like, this
Mhm,
isn't even Harley at her coolest. It's not
that's
anything.
true.
Like, I think that's why I gave the caveat. Like, it's just the Joker stuff that slows this movie down for me.
Mm,
I don't think you can afford to just be like, and Joker's also in this because he's
yeah.
such a big character that you obviously are forced to be like,
Mhm,
oh, I guess we gotta put. I mean, from what we've heard, they didn't even put in half of what he did, and he's
yeah.
still in it. I would say too much, but like
Yes.
this is the and this is why I'm hoping the new Suicide Squad. I don't want to talk too much about that, but like because
Mhm,
we'll just cover it, and we'll probably cover it before this episode even comes out. But like this, like that looks like they get what Suicide Squad is, and that's what I'm saying. Like the whole
mhm,
premise of this 2016 movie is flawed, but at least like
mhm.
that dinner scene, I'm like, okay, this is what they're doing. Like I
Yep.
understand it on this level. Like you can be in or out on that.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. It's that scene establishes everything very, very well. Very, very well. But what I'm just saying is, like, to me, it's just such a slow start. I wish it was like, the disaster breaks out later on, and they're just like, boom, she's got this thing ready to go, and there's less of debate and all this kind of stuff. But this is like,
I don't
oh,
think that would work. I don't
yeah,
I don't
I
think
don't.
you can just be like, yeah, we just have this going. Like the whole point is that you need to sell A, the audience, but B, the universe that Amanda Waller lives in, that anyone would ever like use these people to do what they're about to do.
Mm,
Can't leave that for later. This is what I'm saying. It's setting the intention of the movie, right? So everyone rightfully so is like, why would you just use villains when we can use soldiers and get this done?
yeah.
So I, to the extent that like this didn't really go anywhere, and I understand that they only said the Superman stuff because it is the next movie you see after Batman versus Superman, so it
Yeah.
makes sense that they're like, oh wow, there's like a big power void now. Like this would be the time for Amanda to step forward and be like, all right, we're gonna do my thing again, because like now who knows what Superman's going to step in now, so we should have my team in place again. I
Mm,
don't really know why she thinks a boomerang is going to save us, but like all I know is she wants this to happen, and the good thing about Amanda Waller is she's always got like plans for her plans for her plans. So
mhm,
what she's saying on the surface isn't always relevant. It's just something for you to dig into. This we're not really getting a sequel, and so we'll never really know what the deal is. But
mhm,
I see how that's why I wanted to do this movie, obviously, because it does tie directly into the Snyderverse, because it's all
mhm.
happening because of what happened in Batman versus Superman.
Yes.
But like, yeah, you need to basically set that up right away. Is like she's doing this and she's allowed to do it because she sold everyone on this is what's going to stop the next Superman from taking over.
Yeah, I get that. I get the establishing part. I do. I really still feel like the dinner scene is just way too long. It's just way too long to me. You're right. It's effective at what it's supposed to do. It sells me into it, and it's very strong pitch, and that's why I say it's necessary. But I wish it was just fast tracked and more of just dialogue between her and him, and that was
No,
it.
you can't do tell not show.
I disagree because this is just one of
Well,
those
I'm
things
just
where I'm
saying,
like,
based
I
on
wanted
like
to go
the
fast.
100 episodes we've done,
Yeah,
you have been on many cases, been like,
I
you can't just
agree.
tell not show.
I agree, but it's a bit of showing too much. It's like giving everyone its background story, and then at that point, I'm just like, some characters getting more background stories, and some characters getting better writing than others. Like the Killer Croc stuff, I'm just like, the explanation of like evolution took a step back. They treated him like an animal, so he became one. I'm like, I get that, okay,
Mhm.
but like, man, I wish they just had bothered to go through like, oh, they made up a disease that is just like his skin cells and like his strength, but he's actually still genetically human and all that kind of stuff. And they like, I would have liked that, but for them like, oh, evolution took a step back. I'm like, cool. I guess like it seems like you would have a diagnosis for that condition, and I'd be like, as the audience, I'd be like, okay, cool. Even though the entire condition would be made up. It to me is it's weird. It's weird, inconsistent writing there. I like the stuff they did with El Diablo, right off the bat when they introduced him and like talked to him about this, all this kind of stuff. I love what they did with Deadshot and Batman. The Harley stuff is forever tainted by the Joker stuff in the beginning, but then
Yeah, like I think Birds of Prey is a much better just introduction to Harley.
yes, I
But
absolutely
it
agree.
is what it is. Like and I'm not even saying if David Ayer has way, we would have had a better Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
I think everyone knew like, hey, Harley's the sexy one, right? And I think no matter what, that's
Mhm.
a version of what we would have got is
Mhm.
like I think yeah, the whole Common I don't even know if he has a character name, but like I think he's supposed to be Tattoo Man, but Common, Joker, and Harley all together. I was just like, this scene sucks. I
Yeah,
don't like any of this. Like the whole like she's mine. I'm giving, and I get they're being tongue in cheek. I get they're trying to like intimidate him, but I was just like, this could have been done way better. Like
yeah,
this is not for fans. This is not a dynamic that we've seen with Joker and Harley. Like
yeah.
if you are doing this for the fans who grew up on the cartoon or even in the comics, like this isn't
Mhm.
really like the move for her. And I only say cartoons first because that's where she showed up. Like it's not
Yes,
like this is some like big comic book character and it's like no, she was made for the TV show, so that's kind of where everyone would default to how they want to see her.
correct. It's
And
you're right.
yeah, I'm
It's
just
not a
like I don't
dynamic.
like this at
It's
all.
not a dynamic we've ever seen. It's not a dynamic that we couldn't ever see, but it's a dynamic that doesn't work, and that's the issue here. It's just like I wouldn't believe any part of that. I would believe that they're toxic sexual romantic chemistry, but I would never believe that they're a part of that like community where they would kind of do something like that or um enjoy it or like just be overtly sexual with everyone else. Like I get the idea of like Harley being like, I sleep in any bed and like all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yes. And then they're selling it in like you see it in Birds of Prey, but here you're just like, you don't really see it. It just doesn't
No,
work
I
into the
think
character, right?
that's the other problem with the
Yeah.
movie is no one ever gets to do like I guess I would have thought like maybe Harley got to do what she does best in this movie, but until I
Yeah.
saw Birds of Prey and I'm like, oh no, like this is the Harley that would be on Suicide Squad.
I would
Like
agree.
she can kick everybody's ass. She can use like anything as a weapon. Like
Mhm.
she's really good. Um and again that goes to showing not telling because yes, if I read the screen, it gives all of her stats and it's
Mhm.
telling me she's good at a bunch of stuff, but the movie never shows it, so it doesn't really land. And I think Deadshot again, I love seeing his assassination, but he never does a trick shot again. He just shoots people like everyone else.
Yep.
So it's like I guess you can say there's that scene where all the soldiers are watching him take down everybody, but I'm like, I mean, you could just help him. You don't have to look at him do it by himself. It's not
Yeah.
like he's doing something specifically good other than not missing, I guess.
You're
Oh,
right because I watched that scene and you're like, you hope he would do bank shots to get like certain kills to save people and like, oh, I'm gonna shoot something behind my back because my computer told me so or something like that.
mhm.
And you're like, oh, he's not superhuman. It's because he like has this AI thing that helps him do his job, and you're like, that's sick.
Well, I know people would hate that
Well, I know
if they
people would
did
hate
do
that,
that,
but
but
I mean, like, let's be realistic here. He can be a good expert marksman and still rely on AI too, like
mhm,
in a fight. Like, why not? Right? It's
yeah.
just like we're not saying he's not a good marksman.
I'm just saying if
Yeah,
you're making this movie, it's like, oh, we're making a character people don't actually care about who is white in the comics black, A,
yep,
and then we make it that he's using AI, I'm
Yeah.
sure they were like, we get one out of these two.
Yeah, fair, maybe. Yeah, you're right. But
Like you don't need everybody hating the character, like
yeah,
because you have people hating that he's black going into it, and then
Yep.
coming out of it to be like, and then they made it so that he uses AI. Like you don't want to put the actor or the movie at that kind of
Mm.
put it on the back foot that much.
That's true. That's true. You're crippling where the start is gonna go. And that's a fair point. But you're right. Rewatching that, you never see his accuracy come up in a cool way that
Yeah, it's never
anyone
really like
else-
demonstrated.
Yeah.
Other than like, he other than in the inverse of it, of like
Correct.
he doesn't shoot Harley, which
Yes.
I mean, I knew the first time too, but I'm just like, why did everybody wait till she perked back up? Obviously, if she's still holding the rope, she didn't get shot.
Yeah.
Like he obviously missed right away. I get it; it's supposed to be dramatic, but I was just like, yeah, they stood a bit too long on that beat.
Yeah.
because obviously she wasn't killed.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm like, I guess it's because they want to show off the cool aerialistic
Yeah,
acrobatics that she can do, which is fun. But you're right. They tried to sell that for way too long, and I'm like, you're missing the fact that this is a joke, and it became less of a joke the longer the camera didn't cut.
but yeah, I don't like as much as I was like, yeah, Captain Boomerang's fun in this. Like he's not really a factor, but he's fun. Like anytime he does something, you're kind of like, oh yeah, that's funny. Or maybe that was just because I didn't really like Jai Courtney before this movie. But like, he doesn't do anything with his boomerangs that helps
he does.
them.
Yes, well, he does like
he spies for a bit.
That's about it. And you're like, oh, I didn't know a boomerang could hover and like not fly back.
But like,
that's weird.
You would think that the government could do drones anyway. So like, again, if this is all to make people feel like this is the team that would be able to stop a Superman, obviously in this universe, Superman is dead, so they're not thinking of that specific Superman.
Right.
But someone with that same time, like show me something where like in the field they actually do what you hired them to do.
Yeah, but to be fair, I feel like every version of Suicide Squad that I've seen from like an animated film standpoint, there's always one or two members that are expendable, and the purpose of which those members are existing within the Suicide Squad is to demonstrate that the neck bomb is not bullshit. Because you know, in this situation, it's Slipknot. I think like to be consistent, and I'm meeting the movie more than halfway here. I'm just like, oh, they cast him in here because he's fun, but also like Amanda Waller could flex, because like the entire time, like he's like going off and all that kind of stuff, he's very effectively put in his place just by reminding.
You're talking about Captain Boomerang?
Yeah. He's very effectively put back in his place. So you're like, he's funny and all this kind of stuff. But it's just like the idea of like, no, it was very clear to me that you were meant to be expendable if this got out of hand or something like that. But yeah, that's just how I saw it. I don't think anyone expected him or Harley to be effective.
Well, in the comics, the three, like at the time this movie was made, the three like mainstays of the comic were Captain Boomerang, Harley, and Deadshot.
Yes.
So you would actually, if you cared about the comics, be going in thinking they would be at least at the same level as Deadshot.
Which is not the case here, because like
Captain Boomerang is actually the person that's supposed to be like, it's what I kind of liked at the beginning of the movie, and then they just abandoned it. But like the idea that there are people on the team that are like, oh, I'll just get everybody else killed. Yeah. And like that is usually the Captain Boomerang function, which is not the case here. And as we said, like he kind of sits out a lot of the fights, like he hides and drinks and stuff like that. So it was like, and I get that they also cut out a lot of his racist stuff, which is perfectly fine with me. I don't think we need
100%.
any of that.
I don't need to see that.
But
there's already enough racism in here.
His function is the like legitimate antagonist within the team.
I get that,
which they cut out.
He kind of does do it.
I don't think he does ever.
He doesn't. Like,
I can't even believe that he. But I don't. I think he legitimately was like, "Yeah, let's get out of here."
You know,
in the comics, it's very clear. He's like, "I know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna fuck someone else over," and I don't think that's what happened in this.
it's
I think in that scene he was
clearly-
just like, oh shit, okay, they're
Yeah.
serious about this. Oh, I'm gonna just shape up then.
No, it makes it look like, oh, he's manipulative, but he's in a way where it's like, oh, he just wants to see if it's real, so he'll egg someone else's life on to see if they'll do something before him, because he's like, you go first and I'll follow your lead. And Slipknot does his thing, and then he doesn't do anything until like Flag detonates the bomb, and he's like, oh shit, it's real, and then he snaps back into place, kind of deal. It's like he's just testing the waters to see where everything is, and he's always doing that, right? So it's
Oh,
consistent.
I don't think
but
he's always doing that. I think he did it in that scene, and I'm not
Right.
even really convinced that that was him trying to screw someone over. I think that was him, as you said, just testing to be like,
Exactly.
they're probably lying. But I also
Exactly.
think he legitimately was like, yeah, let's get out of here. It's only really Harley that's kind of like, yeah, like let's just get out of, and I don't mean like because she knows Joker's gonna get rid of her bomb.
Mhm.
Like it's when stuff like when Rick Flag is getting beat up and she's like, yeah, good riddance, and Deadshot has to remind her like,
Mhm.
if he dies, we all die. It's like, I don't think Captain Boomerang is as, and I'm not saying I wish he was, I'm just saying he's not as developed as the other ones. I think it was just like, oh, like we need Slipknot to die,
Right.
and people know in the comics Captain
He's-
Boomerang would be the
yeah.
one to goad him, but
Yeah.
it didn't feel like that type of like actual antagonistic thing. It was just like, yeah, we should
Right.
get out of here. Oh shit, they're actually serious about the bomb. Never
Yeah.
mind.
He just seems like a dickhead that's just like pushing everyone around from a perspective of annoyance, first and foremost. That's primarily it, just because he's annoying. And then secondly, the idea that he's just like, oh, let's see if this is real. Let's see that he's not actually smart and connect like the antagonist,
Yes,
like you
that's-
say
yeah.
in the comics. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And like his introduction, he doesn't, for someone to be important in the actual comics or the animated films and all that kind of stuff, for him to have this much of a backseat role, it sucks because he didn't even get his own reel. It's like, oh yeah, he got caught by a flash and all that kind of stuff, but it was just like, it wasn't a strong like, how are they going to use him in a fight effectively? It's none of it's convincing. It's like, oh, this is a guy that's really good at robbing things, but you just show
Well,
you just
not even because he got caught.
well,
But,
no,
like,
well, in all
I
fairness,
think the whole point
did
was he
all of
went up against
Australia. Yeah,
but what the point of him is, he went up against a metahuman and survived. That was their thing. That's
Right.
what they say. That's what they show.
sure, but I mean, like, to me, that doesn't qualify him as being super or anything like that. Just because, yeah, in all fairness, he went up against the Flash, and what the Flash would do in that situation is just the good guy stuff, which
Yeah,
is
but they don't know that.
Yeah,
That's the
I
whole
know.
point of this universe.
Fair
They don't know.
enough.
They're just like again,
Mhm.
I don't really put much stock into what they said. All I need to know is that is something Amanda Waller can say in a
Yep.
room that
Yes.
would make people be like, oh, I guess so, that's true.
Yep.
Is that he went up against a metahuman and he survived.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I mean, yeah,
And
in
all of
order
these
to-
people she has leverage on because they're all in trouble with the law. So it's not like you have
Yep.
to feel bad about injecting anything into I mean, you should, but it's not like
Yep.
the people in that room would feel bad about injecting them with anything or forcing them to do anything, because
Yeah.
it's like, well, yeah, they lost their rights to everything, so we can do whatever we want to them.
Yeah, and they did it in such a horrific way too. I get that argument, hence literally a Suicide Squad and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, and this is one of those things. I'm just like, yeah, the attention to detail for the characters is so inconsistent, because I'm like,
I don't know
and
if
what
it's
they
inconsistent so
yeah,
much as just,
or how
it's
true
not
they were
a-
being, or whatever it is. But I don't know.
I don't think it's a well put together movie. I just am like, yeah, I like the
100%.
style of it. I do like the needle drops. Like I'm like, yeah, this is fun. This is a good moment.
Mhm.
And so like I had fun with it. And legitimately, I'm like, yeah, I like Amanda Waller and I like Deadshot in this movie.
Yes.
I find like it came off of a period of me being like, does Will Smith even know how to have fun anymore? And I'm like, yeah, he's having fun again. And
Yeah.
like he works me, especially in his assassination scene where he's like,
Mhm.
hey, my bank account's looking empty, and he's like, no, now double it for being a dickhead. Like all that stuff
Yeah.
was good stuff. And I did like how he like kept pushing back against Rick Flag. Like every time him and Rick Flag had to like verbally spar, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I just hated how much Rick Flag just kept picking on him, because I'm like, oh, I feel like you're doing this because, like, why are you doing this? Because I'm like, this doesn't look good on you, and this why they're all being assholes to you. You're picking on Will Smith and
Yeah,
Deadshot's
but
character.
Will Smith is
especially
the
a lot.
only one who specifically attacked his authority and made sure he knew that he was under the black woman.
Mm,
I think
that's
that's what I'm
true.
saying. Like you keep saying the
Well,
details. I think there's a
no,
lot
you're right.
of
You're right.
details.
I did miss that. I did miss that detail. The undermining him.
He
directly in
like
front of
specifically
everyone.
went
Yeah.
at him and made sure that he called him the errand boy, which he was already upset about. Like he was already upset
Mm.
that like, oh, I'm not actually in control here. I'm just doing something for someone else. And Deadshot is the only one who calls that out.
Yeah.
Deadshot is like, oh no, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to your boss, Spag or errand boy, and then like doubles down on it, and then
Mhm.
keeps chipping away at anything that Rick Flag would traditionally feel is like a leadership role.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You know that. Okay. I retract that
I mean,
criticism.
don't get me
'Cause
wrong.
it's
Like I do
fair.
think that like if you were, and I do feel like Joel Kinnaman is someone, and I'm not saying Will Smith doesn't, because I know Will Smith went through a lot to do this because he just couldn't get his head around playing a villain. But
Yeah.
like Joel Kinnaman also probably would play into like what is like the racial dynamic here, and I do
Mm.
think that would have played into his performance even if it wasn't on the paper.
Yeah.
But I think it's all of that stuff. It's
I
just
agree.
I really do feel like, and we said this the first time we reviewed it, the inclusion of Joker is a mistake because
Yes.
it wasn't just, oh, Batman and Joker are making a big scene over here. Let's go in and do this thing covertly.
Mhm.
That's what the movie, that's how it should work. Is
Yep.
that it's, you don't, I mean, it's why in Suicide Squad, I know they're the new one, they are showing you Starro for a bit, but it's not like, hey, it's the Riddler they're going up against, or hey, it's Black Adam. It's like,
Mhm.
no, like they just got to figure this out because they'll probably screw each other over, and like that is how you do a villain story.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Like I'm looking forward to the new one. Not to talk about the new one too much, but in this one, it was too much. It just gives the vibes in the trailer and during the entire watching that they're like, oh, they're trying to make a movie where it feels like that they're trying to get everyone gets along a little bit better versus that one. You're like, I'm waiting to see how everyone screws each other over. Like the dynamics of them picking at each other is hilarious to me, and I'm like, I want to see it so bad. Versus this one, I'm like, it
Yeah,
felt
like they were a real
they
team,
tried.
which I'm
Yeah,
assuming is just because everyone got along so well on the set.
correct.
Um,
That didn't. Yeah,
which still would be fine if you just picked one person in that team that was trying to like blow that up,
Mhm.
aka the Captain Boomerang, but that's
Yes.
not really the case. You like, and I say that specifically because there's the scene where like he's not saying a lot, but they keep tracking Captain Boomerang's like being upset at Deadshot for agreeing to try and kill Harley when she's trying to get away, and then being happy when Deadshot does it and being like, yeah, like all of that is like, yeah, they just like each other is
Yeah.
basically what's going on here.
Mhm.
Which
True.
like if that's your take, that's your take, and it actually does make sense that they would be forced together and be like, well, we've got this one common enemy, Amanda Waller, so like we're against that. But
Yep.
then you add in the Joker, who isn't really doing anything other than trying to save Harley.
Yes.
So I'm like, yeah, like if you put him in, like, whatever. I'm not gonna retread our first review of it. I said it there. Don't put him in the trailers and then just have it be, yeah, he's the one that deactivates Harley's neck, and everyone comes like, holy fuck, they had a Joker in this movie.
You're absolutely right. They didn't use them effectively. They just
And then like
it's not like I still stand with the comments we made in that first recording of this. Still stand by it heavily.
yeah, because I saw David Ayer be like, oh, maybe I should have made him the main villain. I'm like, yeah, you don't get the movie. You don't get the Suicide Squad, which is whatever. Like, and again, it doesn't matter because even Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't like that team that we saw in the 2014 movie. That's nothing like the comics.
Yeah.
They just use names, but like that's not how those, other than maybe Gamora and Groot, those characters don't really operate that way, and they don't meet up that way. Like Star-Lord isn't funny at all. Like it's all of that stuff is like you can change that stuff, but obviously the difference is this movie was made obviously by committee, and then even after that, the director didn't have final say over the footage that was filmed.
Yeah.
So it was like a group of people, and I think that's what you're talking about is like, yeah, that first bit does feel like a bunch of trailers stitched together because it's Trailer House doing it. And so that's that I think that's the issue with this movie, other than the main flaw it has, which is what like this wouldn't ever really happen. And I don't mean like how come they can do that. It's more like, why would anyone believe any of these characters can stop a superhero?
Right. But I don't believe that any of the characters actually believe that they could stop a superhero.
No, not the characters. It's more that that Amanda Waller was able to sell it in that moment. And as I said, I'm not saying she's dumb. I'm saying the people who bought it were dumb because like obviously she's got ulterior motives. That's how I feel about this.
But I think it stands to the strength of her character when she's like when she says like, because getting people to act against their own interests is what I do.
And she's doing that to them.
And she's doing that to them as well. And
that's why I'm not like, oh, the reason is dumb.
Yeah.
It's more like, wow, yeah, those
dumb.
people are dumb.
They're weak. They're weak as fuck. And I agree with you on that. They're so weak. But like, to me, I'm like, great. That means she's that much better. Because like, that's that final scene where she's like, yeah, you got to get this one person. Like, this is the only priority. And she's talking about herself. I'm like, this is awesome. That's sick. And then she's like, oh, I killed them. And then she explains, like, hey, I never intended for them to get this deep into it anyways. Like, obviously, all the information that they knew was like above their pay grade. Like, how else do you clean up after that? You gotta, when you're Amanda Waller. I mean, like, that is ruthless, but I'm like, it speaks to her character. And like, I'm like, that's why I love everything they did with her character.
I like the Amanda Waller character, and I really liked Deadshot.
Yeah.
I think if I had never seen Birds of Prey, I probably would have liked Harley. But then I saw Birds of Prey and I was like, oh yeah, this is just way better. And that doesn't mean that Margot Robbie's doing a bad performance. It's just the material she was given was not where it needed to be.
Yeah. I also like the explanation of like, oh, this is like immediately after the Joker stuff, immediately after the chemical vat stuff, immediately after that. So she's like extra unhinged, and there she's like unhinged but in a more put together way.
I didn't get the sense that it was immediately after that.
Well, I mean,
especially since they're giving stats like she killed a Rob and shit. Like, obviously time has passed. Yeah,
time has passed. I'm not saying that it has immediately afterwards, but the fact that they're showing you that, oh, this is the conversion, this is like the jumping off point, this is the very narcissistic, conceited scene where it's like, will you die for me? I'm like, God damn it. This is why I don't like this Joker. It's like, it's because you're so narcissistic. Why?
I mean, that is comic accurate, but it's just they don't like this. I said it in the first one. Like, I felt like I was watching like the best of clips of a performance I never actually got to see when it came to Jared Leto.
Yes.
Like, it's like, yeah, it seems like he's referencing something, but like we don't get to see it. So it's not landing. And it's why I've never really fully been like, what a shitty Joker. Because I'm like, I didn't like, he obviously did a whole movie and then they just selected scenes. And I don't mean like, oh, takes. It's just like, if you are threading the needle for a performance and then they decide we're only going to use 40% of this, you're going to look bad because you've been threading the needle for at least 80% of that shit to show up.
You're absolutely right about that.
So I can't like,
I agree his performance was misrepresented here. I agree with that.
Like, and I don't ever say that to be like, and it would have been amazing if we saw the whole thing, because I don't think Joker needs to be in the movie that much. It's just like this, it's just that like I can't fully get on board with fuck Jared Leto, what a stupid Joker. I'm just like he obviously was doing something. We just never got to see it.
Yeah. Like, I think the greatest iteration or like through line you see of what Joker actually goes through in this movie is like how he goes through breaking out of Arkham or whatever facility they're at. Because it's just like the way he goes about getting her to fall in love with him, and then like,
Mhm.
oh, the plan all along was I've always looked at you as the villain for getting into my mind and trying to
Mhm.
cure this and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, that's the only through line in this whole entire movie, and I'm like, involving the Joker, that to me makes a lot of sense and was done well. And I'm like, after that, it just got,
Well, I think
you're
the other
right,
line is
too
that
much
Harley
because it,
is now his property.
yeah, I,
That is
yeah.
no, I'm saying I'm not trying to
Mm.
invalidate what you just said. I'm saying
Mhm.
yes, that is one through line, definitely is that. But I think that's like a complete arc that finishes once he breaks out, which is
Yes.
hey, you got in my head, fuck you. I'm gonna get back and I'm gonna get into your head now.
Yep.
And then from that point on, it's and now you're my property.
Yep. And like, yeah. Yeah.
Because it's that and that plays out very specifically in the common scene, but then
Mhm.
also just how it's like I need to get her back, and then
Yeah.
just how he treats her in general is very like, yes, now you're my property.
It's the
I'm in
most
your head. You're never gonna get rid of me.
toxic,
Yeah.
kind of abusive. And it's just like, it's so uncomfortable to watch and it makes my skin crawl. And I'm like, I get that that's the intention of it.
Mhm.
And like, it's, I get all those things. It just makes me violent.
Yeah, we don't have to like it just because we understand
No.
what they were going for.
Yeah. Oh God, it makes me sick.
Yeah, it's not it's why I feel like Birds of Prey works is because it's like, well,
Yes.
we don't have to actually we can deal with the repercussions of her being in that toxic relationship. We don't actually have to see it. Like we could
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, we don't have to like watch her go through it. It's her rebuilding after being in that. And it's why the cartoon works because obviously they don't want to get too dark with it, even though they do
Mhm.
some very dark things in the
Yes, they
cartoon.
do. They do some very, very dark things, but yeah, like when you rewatch the animated series, you're like, whoa, did they just do or say that? It's just like that's got a pretty deep meaning. Like, how did
Mhm.
that make the cut? It's actually quite astonishing.
Yeah,
By
like it's
today's
very clear it's an
standards.
abusive relationship
Oh yeah,
in that. And so
but you don't.
I get that.
I don't.
That
Yeah,
comes
I
with
didn't
if you're doing
see
Harley
it
and
as a
Joker,
kid
I
for
get
sure.
that. You're gonna have
Yeah,
to deal with it. You can't glamorize it. It
yeah.
has to be
Yeah. It has to be shown for the ugly side it is, and this movie does that very, very well. Because like, at I don't know. There are some people that are like, "Oh, I want a relationship like Joker and Harley." I'm like, you get that that was a bad relationship.
yeah, and I
right?
wouldn't say
Like,
it does it very well, but I would say that for us, yes, we can
Yeah.
see the toxicity.
Yeah.
But I think the vat scene in particular kind of glamorizes it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh, see, but he goes back for her. He does care. I'm like, yeah, but after he abuses her like repeatedly, throws her away,
And he
does
went
this,
back
and
to
then
claim his
makes,
prize. He didn't go
yeah,
back for her. Like that at that
exactly.
point, that's his property.
Yeah, because he jumps in there for annoyance because he's like, oh, she didn't get out by herself. Now I have to go and get her. Like, that's how I read it. It's like, oh God, now I gotta go get her. Now I gotta jump in. That's how it read to me. And I'm like, that's not romantic. It shouldn't be. Nobody should see it as that. It should be seen for what it is. It's a toxic, abusive relationship.
Yeah, I think
Don't
it's
glamorize
just
it.
it's too much for
It's too much.
It's too much to try and handle you but because you've already and I'm not even saying this is the wrong thing and it looks like
Mhm.
the new movie is going to do the same thing is you're already trying to like deal with Deadshot and his daughter
Yes.
which does play a bit easier. You don't have to
Yeah.
get into the like intricacies of that relationship. You can get it. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
he's trying to like make his daughter's life better, but he's a criminal. So
Yeah.
there's
The
complications.
surface, yeah, the surface optics of that just works very, very well. The only thing that doesn't work about that scene is his hat. I don't know, just like, the hat really bothers me. I just like
It's just a comic.
it.
Yeah,
I
it is a
get it.
comic.
I get it. It's just wardrobe choice.
I'll never be mad at
everything.
people actually
whatever.
being in their comic outfits.
Fair.
I think there needs to be more of that. I'm not saying this, I think that's good.
Then
Don't be ashamed of. Yeah,
then
I
we
don't
gotta-
think it's a good idea to be like early 2000s where you're ashamed of the comic book stuff and trying to make it
It's true.
look cool.
The Killer Croc makeup stuff does not age well at all.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I thought it looked great.
I no, like every shirtless scene he had, I'm like, oh, they didn't bother to do as much as they did on his face. Like the face looked great, but I'm like every shirtless scene, I'm just like, you couldn't bother to put like some like scale, like something else other than like, it just looked weird. I'm like,
my memory is you've had a lot of issues with it. I don't have any issues with it. I don't like the character. I just think the design is whatever. Like, it looked good. So I don't really know about it not aging well. I don't think you ever liked it to begin with.
Yeah, you know what? That is fair. It's sad, even worse this time. I'm not spending much more time on that than that comment, but it just,
I mean,
doesn't work for me.
I'm assuming you're taking aim at it because that's what they won the Oscar for.
No,
okay.
I didn't know that they won an Oscar for it. I did.
Yeah,
at all.
Like an Oscar specifically for. I mean, it was for makeup, but
and again,
imagine
the
it's
makeup,
because
the
they
face
did
is
it.
amazing.
Yeah, I would imagine it's because
Yeah.
all of this stuff definitely has CG touch-ups, but I believe it was more touch-ups than it was just a fully CGI character.
Right.
So yeah.
So with his, like, my thing is with his face, it's always like every scene with his face, I'm like, yeah, this looks sick. This looks great. Everything about this, I would believe it. But I'm like, why is the body not as scaly? Like, I want the body just as scaly, is what I'm saying. I think it would have looked better. I don't care about the size. I'm just like, why does it look smooth against the skin? It looks like it's painted on, is my issue. Like some of those airbrushed, body art things. I'm just like, it looks good. Like the face clearly has a lot more detail. And I'm like, I get that for the one scene or one or two scenes he's got his shirt off, but I'm like, we could still like put a suit on him or something like that, right? Like some scales, maybe. Like, that's just my only problem with it.
It did not matter to me whatsoever because that was just what the movie was telling me he looks like. He's not actually a crocodile.
I get that. I just want
it is what it is.
More
realistically,
scales. I wanted him to look more cool.
In the cartoon, he didn't really have that many scales, did he? Other than on his face, like it was all gray.
But I feel like for the cartoon, that was just because of the art style that they had. Was just like, you're not going to give us that much detail, but you're going to give us some indication of the detail that's supposed to be there with some kind of scaling on the chest. But like for the chest to be completely smooth as if it was painted on, I'm like, that's my gripe with it. That's all. I think it looks great from the facial standpoint. Like every time he's got his hood up and you see him, I'm like, that looks terrifying. It looks sick. It looks good. But then the scenes where he's got to take his shirt off, you're reminded, I'm like, oh, right. It just looks weird. I don't like it. That's all.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
I was more concerned with him talking like a slave. I don't think I ever really cared about how he looked. Beyond that, I was already out early on.
Yeah, that is not fun.
Never mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I have to say on Killer Croc.
Yeah.
Do not like the character. I'm glad that they won an Oscar for that achievement, but yikes.
Yeah.
Did not appreciate how that character was written.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is on the team? Katana. Yikes.
What a way to play up stereotypes, eh?
They could have. I mean, realistically, she shouldn't have been in the movie. That definitely felt like a tack on. Like, if you are gonna put her in the movie, like, give her a bit more than just, oh yeah, right before the mission, here she is.
Yeah.
And her sword collects souls, and I'm just like,
yeah.
And then I was just bowled over at I completely forgot about it when, like, I guess it's like before they go into battle, and she's like crying and I guess speaking to her husband, and I'm just like, yeah, this seems like it should have been seated earlier, like,
yes,
or explained in any. Like she gets a flashback. Maybe do that as the flashback as opposed to just more fighting.
Yeah, it is the way they make her character. It's definitely an afterthought. The way they wrote her in from dialogue, I'm like, okay, cool, that kind of makes sense. She's here to protect me if any of you get out of line or whatever like that. But then I'm just like, that was enough. That's all he needed to say. And he's like, see that katana holds the blades of all the souls. And I think he says it again too. And I'm like, we get it, man. Like, just
Well,
get
I
it.
mean, it doesn't factor into anything. So
You're
that
right.
was-
It doesn't.
That was
That's why
what
I'm
was-
like,
I mean, I'm all for diversity, so I shouldn't have said she
Yeah.
shouldn't have been in it. It's more,
Right.
I wish she had anything to do other than be his almost silent bodyguard.
that's my gripe with it. I don't wish that she was gone from this. I wish that she had purpose and something to do. Like, like how Lex Luthor has Mercy Graves. Like, do that level of writing for
But
this
to be
character.
clear, not Batman
or-
versus Superman, Mercy
No,
Graves. Just
no,
the actual
yes, not
cartoon.
that. Yes, the
Yeah, we
cartoon
just
one.
talked about that. Yikes.
Yes, that is definitely not what I'm talking about here. I am talking about the Batman animated series, just
Yeah.
because that's where my mind's at.
Yeah,
when
that
we're
Mercy
talking about
Graves is
Harley.
amazing.
That Mercy Graves is amazing, but this is just like this is
But she's
playing
also
up
not played as
every-
Asian.
Yeah.
She is played as white. So
no,
that- I'm just trying to highlight the point of like obviously there is something against Asian women or
100%.
a lack of
Asians in general.
interest.
Yeah.
Yes, a lack of interest in
Hollywood.
writing for them the way the white characters and in this case a black character.
Yeah, because it's just like this is the issue I have with how Asians are portrayed in these movies. It's just like a bunch of white people deciding this is what this is how the cool Asians we see. This is what we like about Asians, and then this is what we're gonna get them to do on screen. And it's always like, so you want us to be silent, you want us to be in the background, and you want us to just like not speak your language ever, and be just basically bossed around all the time. Like that fucking sucks. Like every iteration of it, that's what it's written. And I'm like, it sucks seeing that because I'm like,
Yep.
she has nothing to do in this movie other than fight, protect Rick Flag once or twice, and then get her own side story where it's like, sorry, I was late. I was cleaning up the burgers of my husband. I'm like, whoa, it's that immediate? So how did you get the katana? Like, what the hell? Like, all this kind of like, it's this weird situation where like, there's not enough backstory given where it's like, were you a samurai or a fighter or like whatever before your husband got murdered by that kid? Like, and what's going, like, every part of it's just like, this sucks for me to see. I hate it. Give her something to do. You can write the husband, the backstory stuff. You can do all that shit. Just make her a part of the team where she's actually doing something. And don't make her a prop so other characters can write jokes off of. Like how Harley's like, oh, I like her. And I'm like, cool. That's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know how she fits in, but like I would rather the diversity. So yeah, hopefully give her something to do or make a character like GQ played by Scott Eastwood. Just maybe have, I can't remember, I believe her first name's Karen, have her play that character or something so that you can have at least feel like she's a bit more a part of it and maybe give her more lines that way. Because my problem with Katana is like, this is like a big thing to deal with, like someone who's like trying to honor her dead husband and she's got a sword it's like, yeah, you do have a bunch of questions. And so I understand, and I don't agree with, but I understand the decision to be like, just say it and then she'll be there and people can be like, yeah, there she's there. As opposed to just casting more diversely across the board and having having some of those bigger characters played by different people.
Yeah, and let's not play up all the racial stereotypes.
Yes.
Like, here's a Mexican gangbanger. Here's an Australian that's also racist. And here's like they're playing up every single stereotype here. And I'm just like, this is
I don't think they leaned
really
into the
rough.
racism for him in that one. They did in the script, but I don't think it was there. And it is the character.
No, I
But
mean,
yeah.
like, yes, I agree with that, but I'm like, let's de-racist that character a little bit in the sense of the things he'll do and say and all this kind of stuff. And I really didn't like, oh God, what's his face is, I generally don't like that guy unless he's playing like, I got it, that actor, that guard in the beginning where he's like, "It's my job to keep you all alive" and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like,
Oh, like
dude,
Brian Holtz.
yeah. I'm like, like he does it. The character's so effective. I'm like, yeah, that's a prisoner that would say these things to these people. Like he's that shitty of a person that
Mhm.
he would say like that line is like, hey, when they're trying to talk to El Diablo and all this kind of stuff. How you? I'm not even gonna say it because I hate it so much. But like, God, I hate that racism in this movie. I hate it. Just didn't need it. But
Mm, I like whenever they show that because I think it helps to stop the whole like propaganda type stuff.
Mm.
I actually do like seeing people like that
Oh,
show
I didn't think about it like that.
what it actually is like for
Right.
people. That part of it being very realistic.
Yes.
That would be something that happens. I definitely don't think you should sanitize stuff like that.
You know what? You're fair. That's a very, very good point. I didn't even think of it that way. I like how
think
they just didn't
it's
show
a
like
shitty
Captain
thing to do
Boomerang's
for
racism,
people,
but like,
and
yeah,
I'm glad that they showed all the different ways it's shitty.
yeah. You know what? You're absolutely right about that. I do appreciate that now in retrospect. But I am also glad that they didn't show Captain Boomerang's racist bullshit. Is kind of what I'm saying.
No, I wish
Too.
I wish they did something with him. I think
Really?
I
wish they
think
did
it
something.
suffers
Yeah.
from not making a choice, and I mean that in the editing because obviously I know he filmed scenes where he's racist to Deadshot, he's racist to Katana, and I think in an effort to be like, well, maybe we want people to like him, they got rid of any kind of character choice for him because
Yeah.
he is supposed to serve the function of being the antagonist in the
Yes.
group,
Yeah.
which is completely erased.
Yeah, it's just none of it's effective. It's just like none of it's done because none of it's done. His character's not effective. It's pointless here. Like
Yeah, and
he's
these
an add-on
people are
character as
bad
well.
guys. Like
Yeah.
that's what you're supposed to believe. Like you're
Yeah.
not supposed to just believe like, oh, they're just not as good as the Justice League. You're supposed to actually know they're bad guys.
Yeah, and they do that very, very effectively. It's just
Well, I'm saying they don't.
Oh.
I'm saying you're supposed to know. So when you say things like,
Oh,
I'm
no,
glad
wait,
they
so-
took away the
yeah.
racism and stuff," I'm like, then they're just like a bunch of people who do the right thing, and that's not
True.
really.
Yeah, good
We're
point.
not villains.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, other than the whole like Harley breaking the glass to steal that purse thing.
Yeah,
Like it's like, oh yeah,
criminal
You're-
mastermind.
you're a criminal mastermind. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. Absolutely right. Oh god, yeah, I need to spin that.
I think if your choice is, oh well, we're just making a dirtier group of heroes, then sure, but let's not.
Yeah,
And I'm not even saying that I think this new Suicide Squad is going to make me feel like those are actually
Mhm.
villains. It seems like it's very specifically trying to make me think they're heroes.
yeah,
But
or people that are misunderstood, so to speak.
yeah,
God, I hate that. I hate
but
that.
so maybe that's just cinematically how they chose
Yeah.
to do it.
Sure.
But I mean, I feel like in recent history we've seen better versions of how to do a villain story, and
Yes.
maybe we just weren't there in 2016
Yeah.
in terms of superheroes. No,
Yeah.
not talking about like other more true to life movies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're about to take another swing with Black Adam, so that's gonna be fun.
Well, I mean, for that at least they're stating their intentions right away. He is
Yes, they are
considered an anti-hero. He's not
anti-hero, not completely villain.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So a bit of a dick.
Mhm. Well, I mean, maybe he's not. Maybe he's just like, oh, I don't want to get caught up in the whole, oh, don't kill, because that's morally wrong. Maybe he's just like, hey, if I'm protecting someone and I have to kill another person, that's what
Mhm.
I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see.
Mhm.
But
Let's
that
talk about Enchantress for a little bit because we have not.
I was
talked at
hoping to
all.
never talk about it. I guess they needed a villain. I don't care. I definitely tuned out from her stuff. But you need it for the Rick Flag stuff, and it is kind of like
Yeah.
the ace in the hole for Amanda Waller that
Yes.
she's like because for me, this could all have just been like, I want to control the Enchantress, so that's why
Mhm.
we're doing all of this, and that's fine. But like, yeah, that's because like everyone's like, we're not doing this, and then she's like, oh yeah, watch this. I can get you like the private uh codes from Tehran or whatever.
Yeah.
And there, all of them were like greedily like, okay, here we go.
Hmm.
So you do need a character like that,
Yeah.
and it makes sense that it blows up in their face because I would
Yes.
say, but I feel like that's the distraction you need. You don't need the Joker stuff. Like
Mhm.
that would be like, oh shit, that happened, and then that's when we would see what Amanda Waller's real plan was for the Suicide Squad while shit blew up with Enchantress and the real heroes come in to stop Enchantress.
Hmm.
I feel like is how it should go, but I am trying my best to not do things like this is how it should have gone or this is what should
Yeah.
happen.
I can't. Yeah, they made the choices they made, and I'm only
Yeah.
going to critique the choices they made. I do
But
like.
the only reason it's a problem is because at the end, when she's like, "I'll give you what you want," I'm like, then why wouldn't you just take what she's giving you then? Like you're
Yeah.
not, you don't have to worry about like more like, oh, we got to save everybody's lives. It's like that's not your MO ever.
Yeah.
So why would it be now? And I think I remember the promotions for these movies was like bad versus evil or whatever.
Mm.
But uh, you put yourself in a
Yeah, it's
bind
really.
when it's like they're just bad guys that steal things sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, well, you know, maybe you got to remember that they are actually villains.
Yeah. The one thing I do appreciate is like El Diablo's scene in there where it's like it's revealed he's an ancient god, because it communicates with the like he communicates with the
Mhm.
Enchantress, and like he's like, oh, and I like the dialogue where it's like how like you can see the truth or something like that, you see the light or something like that. And I'm like, I really liked that little part. I'm like, cool, he's
I
on
like
their
El
level.
Diablo.
Yeah.
I the first time I saw it, I was like, oh shit, I
Yeah.
didn't see this coming. Like, cool. Like,
Yeah.
too bad he dies. But like,
Yeah.
I liked his arc.
Yeah.
Especially because his whole thing was like, yeah, I've already got to the point of realizing how bad I am that I would kill
Mhm.
my wife and kids
Mhm.
out of rage. Like I'm trying to stay away from that. So his arc makes sense that it's like
Yes.
these bad guys trying to get him back to doing bad things.
Mhm.
And the only time he does it is to save these people. I'm not really sold on him being like, you guys are actually my family, but I get it. It's like
Yeah.
it's more of a like maybe this makes up for the shitty things I did. Like I'll
Mhm.
take myself out and take this bad guy out.
Mhm. Yeah, that dialogue, I'm like, oh, if you're you guys that okay, I'm not convinced. There wasn't enough to develop there, but I like what he does. And rewatching the movie, one thing I didn't realize the first time, how they like foreshadow his transformation. Because like he does something where he like waves at someone, and then there's like you see a little bit in that flame, the little bit of the mask that the final form wears and all that kind of stuff, and you're like,
Mm,
oh, I didn't notice that before.
that's cool.
That's cool.
I definitely didn't notice it.
Yeah, but that's I mean, like El Diablo is one of the better characters here, and
Yeah, I did
it's
not expect to like him going into it.
yeah, it's just a real shame how they just how he dies. But I mean, like, it makes sense for his character arc and all that kind of stuff. He would
Like
sacrifice
it
himself. And,
sucks because of the movie they did, but
yeah,
realistically, way more of them should have died. That's
yes,
how Suicide Squad works.
that's what I didn't like about this. I'm like, okay, you're killing off Slipknot right away
Which we
to
knew
show
because he doesn't get an intro.
yes, which yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, this is the man that can climb anything, and you're like, okay, I guess
Like
that
it
would
seems
be
like they're putting together a heist. I'm like, why would him
yeah.
climbing things ever help?
Yeah, because I'm
anything?
like, you're heisting something or someone, and that's why Boomerang and Slipknot are there. Because I'm like, yeah, I could see how they would make sense now. Because like maybe Captain Boomerang's like amazing abilities is knowing security systems inside and out to rob all those banks. And I'm like, okay, but they didn't get to do that. They like none of that made sense.
Mhm.
And it's just the thing that bothers me is okay, some more people should die in the final fight. more than just El Diablo, because that was bullshit. Like there, it just bothers me so much. So like, someone should have died. Someone else should have died.
Well, I mean, sure, in the fun, I think it was more for me like that it should be throughout the movie.
Yeah,
Because if you do it all at the end, then it's a sacrifice and it's a good thing instead of the fun of Suicide Squad, which
True.
is bad people screwing each other over.
because
and
it
paying the
should
price.
be. It
Yeah.
should be like a dickhead's version of Game of Thrones, where they. Well, actually, no. Even Game of Thrones is a good comparison, where like your main characters just keep dying off through the whole story, and I'm like, good, keep doing that. That would have been fun. I would have liked that. Keep a few of them alive at the end, just a
Yeah.
few. But
like Harley,
no reason to keep
Captain Boomerang, and
alive.
Deadshot usually make it out alive, but everyone
Yeah.
else is fair game, and they could have. I mean, they couldn't really. Like, you're not going to tell Will Smith. You're not going to rope
You're not
in
gonna
Will
kill
Smith
Will
and be
Smith.
like, you're going to die in this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're
you
not
want
gonna
people to
sell them on that.
believe that he could come back.
Yes.
and, like, bring people back to the theaters.
Yeah.
And yeah, it would be weird to kill off Harley in her first movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they couldn't kill Harley. I'm just
Uh,
thinking like who objectively, realistically would have been expendable in this, and it would have been Killer Croc, El Diablo, who they did kill. Katana, the way they wrote her, obviously would have been expendable. I'm surprised that they actually kept her alive.
Well, because if you do kill her, it's weird because she's not actually part of the Suicide Squad.
Exactly.
She's not, like, the whole point is that the Suicide Squad can get killed off.
I get that. And like if you kill her off, it's weird because like, okay, you're fridging the character for whom? Because it's just like nobody really cares about
Yeah, because
her except for
Flag
Flag.
only cares about
Yeah.
June Moon, whatever, Enchantress.
Exactly.
So it's like it's not going to work. Yeah, it just wouldn't work. If
It's a pointless death. It serves literally nothing. But it's just like but it would serve the purpose of a Suicide Squad in the sense where like, okay, there's still a squad. Who cares? Like, more people should have died and built into that. But like Captain Boomerang in this movie should have 100% died. Like,
I agree.
Should have died. Like, there's no reason to keep him alive except for, oh, you're gonna show us how punishingly painful it's gonna be in isolation, and like that final scene where I'm like, that just makes me really, really empathetic, even though he's a dick, and I'm like, it just sucks.
I think that ending
It's
makes
conflicting.
more sense if we got to see him be racist to everybody throughout the movie and really not like him.
Yes.
If you cut all that out and then you just are like,
You're just
he
being
suffered
cruel.
the most out of all of this, and it's like,
Yeah.
why him in particular?
Yeah, because he's like, he literally got nothing. He's like, oh,
It got worse than nothing because he
Yeah.
was just transported there to be on the team, and then he got put into isolation. It's not even like, because he wasn't there before. They're
Right.
making it seem like he just got caught by the Flash.
Mhm.
And so it's like, well, you started off worse than you ended up worse than you started. Everyone else got
Mhm.
better.
True. Like,
And it's like,
'cause
wow, this makes no sense.
Harley gets the espresso machine, Killer Croc gets BET, which I'm like, out of everyone's, like Will Smith's, like out of everyone else's luxury request, I'm like, the BET one, or like just cable in general, I'm like, that's a smart move. I'm like, yeah, what else would you do in your prison cell? Like,
Mhm.
that's awesome. Like the espresso machine to me, I'm like, whatever. But I'm like, Harley's character, they're clearly playing up the fact that she's still an intellectual trapped in all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
when she's like reading that kind of stuff. Because I forget what she's reading, but like, yeah, she still enjoys the finer side of things. Like, she's still that therapist and that doctor, and she has those days. Like, cool, that's a nice touch. But I'm like, television or like access to books would have been interesting. But in like out of everything, I'm like, Killer Croc's decision, I'm like, yeah, that's sick. You can
Yeah.
you can still figure things out. Like, I like how Captain Boomerang is like, I have 3 life sentences. 10 years does nothing.
Yeah. But yeah, Deadshot gets to see his daughter. That's
Yeah.
nice.
That's very nice. And he gets his letters going forward.
Mhm.
So that's really cool. That's really cool.
But yeah, the decision to shit on Captain Boomerang only makes sense if you know what they cut out of the movie.
Yes. Because he's a racist dick.
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't. Well, I mean, that's the thing is,
Yep.
everything is set up for him to be the antagonist of the
Mhm.
group, but they cut it all out. So it's like it wouldn't just be the racism; it would be the other shit. Like if he, I still stand that I don't think he was trying to get Slipknot killed. It would be more if
He
he
was not.
did actively want to kill off Slipknot and then start trying to kill off other
It-
people in addition to the
yeah.
racism.
I wasn't, to be fair, I wasn't saying that he was actively trying to. I was saying more like he was trying to get other people to test out the grenade in the neck.
Mhm.
And because he was just tempting everyone at that point. So like, and then like, who's going to be the first one? Who can I manipulate into playing the neck thing and all that kind of stuff? And I like that Killer Croc is like immediately smells him, just like punches him out or like punches him away. He's like, yep, just having a laugh, backing off. Like knew he couldn't test his limits with Killer Croc, so he doesn't even try anymore. I think it's great, but like I think he was just trying to see, hey, is this thing real or are they bluffing?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to say?
No, there's nothing else we can say about this movie. It still stands as we saw it the first time, maybe even worse. I know my patience for it was worse than allowing me to miss a whole lot of glaringly obvious things like the portrayal of the cops being dicks. Yeah, that was good. Forget what I said initially on mic. That's good because of
well,
dicks.
all right. Let's rate this thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a 7.
This is a 5.
Excellent.
I did not enjoy this.
I had fun with it still. It's just not as fun on repeat things, but I'm like, I get what they were going for.
Mhm.
I enjoyed the ride, and then I kind of got bored with the Joker stuff.
I'm like, say bored. Yeah. It did not disappoint. Yeah, I just wish that there was a better movie to look at. But here we are.
We all do.
High hopes for the next one.
Yeah. And you could probably, or you probably already have heard that episode by going to thatshelf.com, because we are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, all sorts of things. So please go there, enjoy those shows, enjoy our show, enjoy more shows. And then if you would like to hear older episodes of this show, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @tdfspoiled. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, a whole bunch of places. So go there, rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends and anybody who will listen to you about podcast suggestions. Yeah, that's that.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.